Hi guys, my name is Trinity, and if you are here, you must be here to talk about books. Today I am here to do my August wrap up. And in August, I read 15 books. However, I DNF'd 3. So technically only 12 were 100% read. Now 3 is the highest DNFs I have had this year. Now, it's not the highest I've ever had, but it is the highest for this year. And I'm going to talk about all of them and let you know a little bit about what's going on with me and why I'm DNFing these books. So while my number is a lot lower than it was last month, I actually read 6,024 pages. Still not as much as last month, but last month I was focusing on this readathon for the Oasis Discord. So 6,000, that's pretty dang good for me. That's pretty high. So of the books that I read, 4 of them were contemporary, 2 of them contemporary romance. 1 was sci-fi and the rest were fantasy. I'm going to go in the order that I read them. This seems to work out better for me and my ADHD. Otherwise, I get sidetracked. But the first one that I read or listened to, because I got this as an audio from my library, would be Below Xero by Ali Hazelwood. It is a contemporary romance. Ali Hazelwood writes about women in STEM, and her books are so good. So good. I read The Love Hypothesis not too long ago, and that got me interested in Ali Hazelwood's other works. And I have actually already picked up another Ali Hazelwood with Book of the Month. They have her newest, and that will be in a book haul later on. But let me just say, Ali Hazelwood writes romance really, really well. I'm not surprised. She came from fan fiction background, and those are usually really good. Like the ones that I have read, yeah, there's some stinkers out there in fan fiction, but I am a huge fan of fan fiction. And when you write Raylo fan fiction, I'm always going to be a fan. This one is not Raylo fan fiction, but this one, it does do the grump sunshine. There is a little bit of a miscommunication trope in this. It's not like crazy or anything like that. It's one, she does miscommunication well. That's one thing I can say for Ali Hazelwood. When she writes miscommunication, there's a reason for it. And so I really, really enjoy it. I gave this little novella 5 stars because as far as romance goes, Ali Hazelwood just does everything right. Next, I read Illuminati. Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This was a fun ride of a book. I absolutely loved the way it was written. Yes, I did have to do the audiobook as I was reading, so I did immersive for this because there's no way my brain would have processed it otherwise, but Illuminati was so good. I can't wait to continue with this series. This does knock a Pop Sugar book off of my list, so that's another bonus. But I will say, if you're gonna read these, I would recommend the audio just because they are done in mixed media format. So you get this really cool experience when you do it via audiobook. And again, I think I gave this book 4.5 stars because it was absolutely amazing. And I think Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman have cemented themselves as favorite authors for me. Now, if you guys have been watching, you will know I had this in a read or toss video. It was a book I'd had on my TBR for quite some time. The second book is about to come out and I'm very excited for it. This is one heck of a ride. So this book comes out blazing, doesn't stop, and it's so good. So we have a girl who doesn't really know her place in the lore of this world. However, she gets wrapped up with the gods and sent on a mission with one of the gods, has to help them restore Olympus, and it is so fun. If you like God's like intervening in the real world per se, I think this is a book that you should definitely pick up, because this was so fun. I gave this book 4 stars. I'm very excited to continue with this series. And like I said, it was in a reader toss. I'm keeping it. I'm keeping this and picking up the next one. So next one is kind of a funny story, because I did my 12 by 12 and 12. I let other people pick books for me for a different readathon. And then my mom goes, well, wait, what about me? Why don't I get to pick a book for you? And I said, well, go ahead, Mom, pick a book for me. Now, one of my mom's favorite authors is Nora Roberts. I do like Nora Roberts myself. And I read The Witness. I really enjoyed it. So this is about a girl who inadvertently gets wrapped up in a mafia crime family. And she is very innocent and very pure, very smart, but somehow she ends up at a club with this girl who says, we need to hook up with someone tonight, you know, live life. She is rebelling against her mother. And she's like, okay, let's do this. Well, then they witness a murder, and she gets away. Her friend dies, but she gets away. And that is the premise of this story. And man, I enjoyed it so much. Again, I gave this book 4 stars. It's not really what I gravitate towards, but I trust my mom when she gives me a recommendation, because even though we have different tastes, she knows my taste pretty well. But this was really good. And like I said, it's another one that's going to take you for a ride, and you're just going to enjoy your time while you're reading it. And we come to our first DNF. Now, I have a little bit of explaining to do here. For the Throne by Hannah Whitten. I am keeping this. I'm holding on to it, hoping that I will go back to it. So it's kind of a soft DNF. I liked For the Wolf so much. For the Throne, I have not really enjoyed this story very much. I really like Red's story. I was really invested in Red's story, but this one for some reason is not giving me those same feels. I'm not really caught up in what's going on. The first book actually is a combination of Red Riding Hood, Beauty and the Beast, and you have this really atmospheric writing and everything like that. That's not missing from this book. It's not. What has happened, though, at the end of For the Wolf changes everything about this story. And I have a really hard time with that whenever you pick up the second book and it's nothing like the first. So I'm going to hold off on this. I am going to keep it. I really want to like this. I purchased the duology because I was very excited for this one. So I also had an ALC of this, which I can't even review because I haven't made my way through it yet. So I will hold on to this. I will put this off for a little while and see if when I come back to it, I have a different experience. Next, I bought the trilogy. Never Die is the first book by Rob J. Hayes on audio. And I just needed an audio to listen to while I was cleaning because I was getting kind of bogged down a little bit. If you guys don't know, I am doing SPSFC, so I needed a shift. I needed to come out of the sci-fi and read some fantasy. This is a quick read. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just read the first one and we'll go from there. I liked this. This is, again, a really fast-paced story. Everything is go from the very beginning. I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. Now, I can't see this book becoming a favorite. I can't see this series becoming a favorite. And the reason for that is it's not, there's a lot of lore in this that doesn't get discussed, doesn't get picked apart. And that's what I love in fantasy. Robin Hobb does it really well. There's Anthony Ryan does it really well. I have an issue when the lore is not discussed. Now, we do get a good amount of it for how short the book is. So I understand that in order to do so, the book would have probably had to have been another 150 pages. And these are meant to be quick reads. Well, that is the only thing that kind of knocks this down on whether or not it'll become a favorite for me, but I do enjoy them quite a bit. Next, I read The Ballad of Perilous Graves. Now, if you are in the mood for some hardcore New Orleans vibes, this is the book for you. I'm talking big band, I'm talking spirits, I'm talking just the way these people speak to each other. Like, if you love New Orleans, you will love this book. I love New Orleans and I loved this book. It is weird. It does a lot of things that you're not expecting from fantasy. It reads like an urban fantasy, and it's just really, really cool. The lore is delved into deeply, so that is another thing that I really enjoy. And the scenario that has these kids at this magic school and stuff like that, it's really, really interesting. And like I said, if you like New Orleans, you'll love this book. If you don't have that connection to New Orleans, there might be a lot of things in this book that put you off. Now, I have heard people review this. I've heard people say it's just a confusing mess. It is if you don't know New Orleans well. All right, for my next DNF, we have Theft of Swords. If you guys have watched for a while, you'll know I started reading Theft of Swords, read the first book, and then put it down. I have not been eager to pick it back up. I don't think Michael J. Sullivan is the author for me. I don't like simplistic writing, and Michael J. Sullivan writes very simplistically, and it kind of annoys me. Like, I don't know why I can't connect with it, other than writing style is very important to me. And so I just don't think Michael J. Sullivan is the author for me. I ended up DNFing it about 30% of the way through. I was like, no, I don't like this. So I did end up taking the entire trilogy, or their bind-ups. So the trilogy with the bind-ups. I ended up taking them to the buy-sell trade and getting trade credit for them. Next, I read Flamefall by Rosaria Munda. Now, let's just talk about some dragons. Can we talk about dragon battles? Because that is what this is full of. If you like dragons, pick this up. Stop sleeping on it. If you like political intrigue, pick this up and stop sleeping on it. I have loved this trilogy. I have the third book ready to go. I'm eager to get into it. And if you haven't read the first book, it really centers on the relationship between two orphans that were orphaned due to war. And they are recruited to be these dragon riders, defenders of this realm. And they have come to figure out they are on opposite sides of this rebellion, but they still try to be friends. And this delves into what that looks like for each of them now, whereas the first one really tackled how is this relationship going to work. And they are friends, and they kind of are friends to lovers, to enemies, to friends. Like, they have a really complicated relationship. But this one really delves into why. Why are all of these things so bad? Why are all of these things such issues for them? And they're still kind of on different sides of this battle in this book. So my copy got really banged up in the mail, but I have loved this trilogy. Like I said, I have Fury Song ready to go, and I'm hoping I get to it pretty soon too. Next was my third DNF, and I have to talk about this book a little bit because it was simply not my taste. The Forever Sea. I had so many of you guys reach out to me and say you were excited for me to read this. You wanted to hear my thoughts on it. Let me tell you, it's probably the best book I've ever DNF'd. And I say that because the writing is beautiful. The characterization is beautiful. The relationships in here are really beautiful. The way that you can feel the camaraderie, the found family in this book is really beautiful. And I would liken this to the same feels that you get when you read Becky Chambers. I think a lot of people really need to pick up this book, but it wasn't for me. I don't do cozy well. I don't do the slow pacing well. And whenever there's just not a lot of action, when there's not a lot of pushing the plot forward, I get really, really bored. But I really enjoyed what I read of this. I just got to a point where I was like, no, this is not for me. And like I said, it's probably the best book I've ever DNF'd. But if you like Becky Chambers, if you like that cozy feeling to your fantasy, definitely give this a try. All right, the next one that I read was The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. Holy crap, I loved this book. So in this book, we have very much an enemies to lovers situation. And whenever you look at the comps for it, it says TJ Klune meets You've Got Mail. And I was like, oh, this is going to be cutesy crap that I am going to hate. Also, look at this. I love this. But I loved it. I loved it. So this is a fantasy romance that leans heavily into the romance. But one of the things that makes this book so great is Heart and Mercy are very much enemies. And this stems from like miscommunication, but it's that they automatically think they're not going to like the other person. So they treat the other person like crap anytime they see each other. And that's basically the only hatred we have here. It's not really, they judged each other too quickly, I guess is what you could say. But Hart ends up in a position where he realizes he has no friends, he has no one to lean on. He has gotten himself into a really bad situation where he's turned everyone away, he's pushed the people in his life away, and he randomly writes a letter to no one, kind of pouring his heart out and like really trying to be like honest. Well, that letter ends up being delivered to Mercy. Even though that's not the intended target of that letter, he wrote it to no one, he addressed it to no one, but he sent it anyway. And the mail carriers, because you know, there are mail carriers here who they have magical powers, deliver it to Mercy and say, this was for you. Just so you know, this was written for you. And she was like, it's not even addressed to me. But she reads it and she feels for the author of the letter so much that she writes back. And she starts to pour her heart out. And there are interactions between Heart and Mercy that, you know, they don't know who the other author of the letters are. And so it makes it really funny because you know that they're the friend that they're writing to, but they don't know that. And they keep interacting and you're just like, guys, that's the person you're writing the letter to. That's the person who wrote the letter to you that you thought was so beautiful. And then when they finally meet up, shenanigans ensue. So I thought this book was so good. It's wholesome, but I enjoyed it so much. Next, I read The Night Tiger, which has been on my TBR for quite some time, and it is very much magical realism. And I have to say, I was kind of disappointed with this book. I don't know what I can pinpoint exactly to say why I was disappointed, because the writing was good, the magic was really well utilized, and the characters themselves were really good. But I think what it was is the relationship in the book bothered me. to the point that I actually ended up not really enjoying my reading experience. So if you don't know, the lovers of this book are stepbrother and sister, and they grow up in a really harsh environment and end up leaning on each other. And then towards the end of the book, well, they've fallen in love with each other. And I think that bothered me. I think that was the whole scenario, just bugged me. I didn't like it. And that made my reading experience, I think I gave this a 3-star because of that relationship. And while everything else about it was really good, I did not like that part. All right, next on my list is a man called Uva. This was recommended to me by my friend Andrew. And I didn't cry. I was really, really like not wanting to pick this book up because I thought I was going to cry. However, this book reminded me so much of my dad that I just felt happy. If you guys don't know, my dad passed away a few years ago. So reading this and it reminded me of my dad, it didn't make me sad. It made me felt like my dad was back. So I really, really enjoyed this. I do want to put out a trigger warning that Uva, like through this whole book, is trying to kill himself because he just wants to be with his wife. And there are people in his life that stop him from doing it and make him realize, you know, he's needed, he's wanted in this world. So I really, really, really enjoyed this book. And I think I might try another Frederick Bachman after this. This is my second, and I have liked both of the ones I've read from him so far. The other one was Anxious People, but this was really good, and I think it's really, really worth the read. All right, next for my Pop Sugar Challenge is the book that made me cry, and that would be Get a Life, Chloe Brown. So I had a couple of weird reactions to this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars, which it probably is deserving of a 5, but I couldn't make the smuttiness of this novel with the really heartfelt, you know, look at fibromyalgia. Like, I couldn't make the two become one book in my brain. I was reading 2 separate books. But I really enjoyed the way that this brought up so many issues, talked about so many things that I deal with in my own life. And yes, some of it hit home and made me cry. I thought it was beautifully written. Now, it is a lot smuttier than what I thought it was going to be, especially with it being as popular as it is. Like, there's as much smut in this as there is in Den of Vipers, and I wasn't prepared for that. So if you pick this up, do know that you are getting a very wholesome story, but there's a lot of smut in it, a lot. And I really, really enjoyed it. All right, for the final book. Now, I am 2/3 of the way through this book. It is a heck of a chunky book. You probably already know what it is. Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. Now, I will finish this before the end of the month, I do believe, but let me just go ahead and say Live Ship is one of my favorite. I absolutely love this book. I love this series. I love these characters. Man, they go through some crap. Robin Hobb really likes to put her characters through the ringer. But if you have slept on this series because you did not like Assassin's Apprentice, please, please, please pick up Live Ship, because I didn't like Assassin's Apprentice either. And these are so worth it. Absolutely worth it. I love, love, love Live Ship. Now, I can't even tell you what this book is about because this is the 3rd and final book in the Live Ship Traders. But we are getting a whole lot of lore and character development, and man, this, like, she's breaking open the lore in ways I wasn't even expecting, but I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, that is it for me today. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.